How's it going here, and welcome back to another camera comparison with the iPhone 13 Pro. Just remember that the 13 Pro has the same camera setup as the 13 Pro Max, and I have it up against the very best from Apple from the last 2 years, the iPhone 11 Pro Max and the iPhone 12 Pro Max. And so maybe you have the 11 Pro or 12 Pro and are considering upgrading to the 13 Pro just for camera performance alone. I hope this comparison helps you out. Now, the first thing to keep in mind is that if you're on an iPhone 11 Pro or Pro Max and you're tired of not having night sight on the ultra wide angle camera or the front facing camera, then you may want to consider upgrading to the 12 Pro or 13 Pro. Next is maybe you're a true pro and you want to use Apple Pro RAW format so you can edit your photos in post. Then you're going to want to consider upgrading to the 12 Pro or 13 Pro again. Also, maybe you're looking forward to Apple's brand new ProRes video that's going to be coming out on the iPhone 13 Pro. That's maybe one reason to upgrade to a 13 Pro. But other than those specific reasons and those very specific use cases, I don't think you necessarily have to rush out and upgrade to a 12 or 13 Pro iPhone. I think you're going to find in this camera comparison that if you're just using the standard settings out of the box and you're just doing mostly point and shoot photos and videos, that the iPhone 11 Pro Max, 12 Pro Max compete very closely with the 13 Pro Max, especially in fairly good to moderate lighting conditions. In low light, technically, yes, the 13 Pro is a little bit better. The camera hardware is slightly better for low light performance. They also have improved smart HDR4 software algorithms and a brand new image signal processor in the 13 Pro. But to me, in my performance and testing, it's amounted to very marginal improvements there. So really depends on how much you really want that low light performance, especially on the ultra wide angle camera and all those other features that are exclusive to those models that I just talked about. But that's why I do the comparisons, so you can see for yourself all the photos and videos from all three of these phones and determine for yourself if the upgrade is worth it or if you really need to be doing that. And so go ahead and take a look at all the photos and videos. Let me know what you think, and hope this helps you out. Everyone, so here's a rear video test on the iPhone 11 Pro Max, 12 Pro Max, and 13 Pro, which has the same camera setup as the 13 Pro Max. So as you can see here, they all are recording from the rear-facing cameras. And this is being shot at 4K 30 frames per second from the ultra-wide-angle lens on each. So I'll just pan around to give you a feel for how these ultra-wide-angle cameras compare, and it should all be the same. So same field of view, should be the same colors, but do check it out here. And as I pan down, we'll check for the exposure in the sky, because sometimes when you do that, it blows out the sky, trying to refocus on what's in front of it. And all three cameras seem to be doing a pretty good job in that regard here. So let's go ahead and move into the main lens on each, on the 11 Pro Max, 12 Pro Max, and then on the 13 Pro right there. So here is the main wide-angle cameras and how they compare on all three. And according to Apple, the main difference on the 13 Pro should come in low light. So I'm guessing in these conditions, they should all probably be looking pretty much the same here. Although the 12 and the 13 support HDR video, so that could be looking a little bit different. But let's go ahead and pan over here to the right. Test zoom here out on that cell tower. So we have a 2x telephoto on the 11 Pro Max, 2.5 times telephoto on the 12 Pro Max, and a 3x telephoto on the 13 Pro. And so on the 11 Pro Max, we can move all the way into a 6x digital zoom. 12 Pro Max, we got a 7x digital zoom. And 13 Pro, we've got a 9x digital zoom. So that's how all the max zoom compares on each. So let's back all three of these out. So 13, 12, and 11. And let's go ahead and test autofocus on the post first with the 11 Pro Max. So really snappy autofocus here on the 11 Pro. And one more time. And let's go with the 12 Pro Max. Again, really snappy autofocus as expected. And refocus away as well one last time here. And then let's go with the 13 Pro. So snappy as well. So as expected, snappy autofocus across the board on all three of these with some pretty decent natural bokeh or background blur. So let's go ahead and test stabilization as I walk down the stairs here on all three, so you can see what that looks like here at 4K. And now the 12 and the 13 have that inbuilt stabilization, and the 11 doesn't, so I'm not sure if that's playing a role here, but let's go ahead and jog to test it out. And we'll pull up here and pan up into the afternoon sky to see how these cameras handle that really bright light. Hey friends, so this will be a front-facing camera test on the iPhone 11 Pro Max, 12 Pro Max, and 13 Pro, which has the same camera setup as the 13 Pro Max. So as you can see here, all are recording from the front-facing cameras here, and this is being recorded at 4K 30 frames per second on all three. So this is how they all compare from the front-facing cameras. And I'm starting at my usual testing spot outdoors in some pretty even light in the shade, so you can kind of see how these cameras perform without a lot of harsh light on them right now. I'll just move around so you can kind of see how the image quality changes as the lighting changes, especially when I step into the really bright light that's going to be shining right down directly in front of me right now. So you can see what that does to the video quality here and how the cameras adjust. But let's go ahead back in the shade. You can see what it looks like here in this nice even light, and I'll pan around so you can see how the image quality changes and exposure adjusts now that the sunlight is coming directly from behind me. You can see that backlight. You can see the 11 Pro, at least when I'm seeing the viewfinder, is struggling a little bit more with that backlight than the 12 and the 13 slightly. I think the 13 is doing a little bit noticeably better in that regard, but that could just be me. Now let's keep panning around so you can see what it looks like here back from where we started, and I'll start walking to test stabilization so you can see how stabilization compares from the front-facing camera on the 11, 12, and 13 models here. So let me know what you think between the front-facing camera on all three of these phones. Alright, so here's a low light test from the iPhone 11 Pro Max, 12 Pro Max, and 13 Pro. This is the ultra wide angle lens on each at 4K 30 frames per second. And so this is where Apple has claimed to make the biggest improvement in its iPhone 13 Pro with the ultra wide angle lens and their low light performance. And from what I can see in the viewfinder, the 13 Pro does look like the brightest out of the three, but we'll see once this video is processed. And I'll just pan around to give you a feel for what these ultra wide angle lenses look like. They should have the same field of view, but the 13 Pro should have better low light performance here based on what Apple claims. So let's go to the main lens on the 11 Pro Max, 12 Pro Max, and the 13 Pro. So as you can see, things just got brighter on all three lenses. With the main lens, obviously it lets in more light, so it's going to be brighter than those ultra wide angle cameras. But let's go see how it flares out this light, or how it handles this bright street light. And actually they're all three are handling that really bright street light very well. It's not flaring them out at all, which I was expecting a little bit more lens flare considering how bright that is and how it's performed in the past, but cloud cover could be helping that a little bit for some reason. But let's go ahead and pan around and pan this way fully, and we'll start walking to test stabilization, so you can see how the stabilization in all three compares in low light with Apple's inbuilt stabilization, hardware stabilization on the 12 Pro Max and the 13 Pro, and not on the 11 Pro Max. See if it makes any difference. Generally in low light it's tougher to stabilize, it'd be a little more jittery in general. And from what I can see, as we make it over to this much darker area, all three phones are brightening up the scene quite a bit more than what I'm seeing with my own eyes. It's not this bright, and they're all equally doing a fairly good job from what I can see. Let's pull up here and pan up into the night sky where we have some cloud cover tonight, so you can actually make out some cloud definition. It's brightening up the sky enough so you can make that out. It's not really that bright, obviously. And I'll pan over here this way where it's a mixed lighting situation down this darker alleyway where it's not as bright as previously, not quite as dark as I was just showing you. So there is a low light test from the 11 Pro Max, 12 Pro Max, and 13 Pro in 4K. Everyone, so here's some low light from the front facing cameras on the iPhone 11 Pro Max, 12 Pro Max, and 13 Pro here. Again, the 13 Pro has the same cameras as the 13 Pro Max, so this is the best of Apple for the last three generations. Obviously, we're starting out in some low light, in some pretty ideal low light conditions with some pretty good amount of light around me. So I can see how these cameras perform in some pretty optimal low light conditions here. You can see to the left and to the right of me, as well as that really bright street light in the back that they're flaring out a little bit, as you would expect for being such a bright light there. But this is being shot at 4K 30 frames per second on all three of the front facing cameras. So let's go ahead and start walking to test stabilization so I get a feel for what that looks like here on all three of these front facing cameras. And from what I'm seeing in the viewfinder, they're all doing about fairly similar, but it could change with the processing of the video after. And we're going to move over to a bit of a more difficult lighting situation, a little bit darker area here, so you can see how they perform in this type of a light. I also have a fountain to the right of me, so we can test out the microphones with that background noise. And we'll pan around one more time to show you the really bright set of streetlights behind me and how they're doing within that. And actually not too bad on all three. Maybe the most flare coming from the iPhone 13 because they're trying to brighten it up the most. The 12 Pro Max, for whatever reason, looks the darkest right now. And let's go back to this darker area again so you can see what this lighting situation looks like here side by side against the 11 Pro Max, 12 Pro Max, and 13 Pro. So I think that's going to do it for this camera comparison. So let me know what you thought about all the photos and videos that you saw from the iPhone 11 Pro Max, 12 Pro Max, and 13 Pro here. Do you think Apple's made some significant improvements over the last 3 years, or is it kind of about the same? I think for low light, the 12 Pro and the 13 Pro should have looked a little bit better than the 11 Pro, since the 11 Pro does not have night mode on the ultra wide or the front facing camera. So if that's important to you, it might be worth the upgrade. But as far as most other lighting conditions, especially good light, I don't think you're going to see much of a difference, and that's not where the improvements are going to come. It should have been in low light. So if you do a lot of low light photography or video and that's important to you, might be worth the upgrade, but I don't think it's been that significant, at least from what I can see. But do let me know what you thought about all the photos and videos. Which one did you like of the three? Do you think it's worth upgrading from the 11 or the 12 to the 13? Let me know. Any questions or comments, leave them down below as well. I'll try to answer what I can. And as always, thanks for watching.